Germany's government says it has agreed to withdraw all its troops from Mali by 2024. The West African nation has been fighting a jihadist insurgency for a decade now. Germany has around 1,000 troops currently deployed in Mali. Most are involved in reconnaissance. The pullout will start in mid-2023. More and more Western nations have withdrawn their forces from Mali in recent months. Its military government has become a close ally of Russia, and Russian mercenaries have been linked to several massacres there. Well, earlier we spoke with DW correspondent Benjamin Alvarez and asked him what was behind Berlin's decision.
It is not really a surprise, and there have been several problems between Berlin and Bamako that also led to Germany temporarily suspending its Bundeswehr mission in Mali. That was back in August, where Berlin accused Bamako of not giving a German military plane so-called overflight rights to a planned change of personnel who were there. So now they had this emergency meeting with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, with the ministers of defense. The foreign minister Annalena Baerbock was also there, and the development minister, deciding that they want to start this process of starting to pull out the troops in Mali, starting in 2023 and then ending in 2024. But there are, of course, still concerns of what might happen after the German troops leave. There's also a discussion that we heard back in August when the last French troops left. There was a decision taken back in March to say that the security of the soldiers cannot be guaranteed, something similar that has been in the voice in the discussion for several weeks now here in Germany.
And let's go straight to Ulf Lessing. He's the director of the Regional Sahel program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Mali, and he joins us tonight from neighboring Niger. Mr. Lessing, welcome. How is the decision by the German government received in Mali?
Well, there has been no official reaction yet, but people in northern Mali definitely will regret the decision, because the mission, provides some sort of protection against Islamists.
What made this mission ultimately untenable for the German government, you think?
Well, their main job is to do surveillance operation via drones, to help, provide, a complete security picture for the UN mission, and that has become more and more difficult because the Malians don't really give permission for these drone flights, because the Russians, they don't want to be, spied upon their positions, and that, apart from other problems, made it a bit more difficult to continue the mission.
I want to talk about Russian involvement in Mali in a second, but first I want to know what the withdrawal of not only Germany, but also, British troops and French troops means for the future of the UN mission MINUSMA.
Well, it will create a vacuum in northern Mali that will be filled by jihadists, which have been on the rise since the French announced their retreat. And it's not just about Mali anymore. The jihadists are expanding from Mali to neighboring countries here in Niger, where I am, to Burkina Faso, to even to more stable coastal countries. So you could say the stability of West Africa as such is at stake now, and people will regret the mission.
Russia and the Wagner group, as you said, are bound to expand their influence in Mali after Western troops withdraw. What other repercussions could that have locally and regionally, as you pointed out?
Well, the Russians have been repeatedly accused of human rights violations, abuses against civilians. This has led to a new mobilization of young people, frustrated with the, Russian operations, who are actually now joining jihadist groups. It has the Russian presence has made the security situation worse, and this will have, repercussions for the whole region.
What's the future of MINUSMA? Is this the end of the road? Can it be saved, that mission to stabilize this country?
Well, we've been more and more Western nations pulling out. The French are gone. The Brits have announced their departure. Other Europeans now, the Germans. They can, in theory, continue. That's possible. But the nations with the biggest capabilities, like the Europeans, are leaving. So it will be a mission made of underpaid and poorly equipped African nation who probably will stay mainly in their camps because they're too afraid to leave and go on patrols.
And that is bad news for the people of Mali. Ulf Lessing, Director of the Regional Sahel Program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. Thank you so much for your time. And let's dig a little deeper and bring in Christian Klatt. He's the representative of the German government-funded Friedrich Ebert Foundation in Mali, and he joins us from Bamako. Mr. Klatt, welcome. Have there been any reactions to Germany's decision there?
Not yet. So the decision is out quite recently. But what we heard last week when the first rumors appeared about the German retreat, we saw a wide variety of reactions, mostly being concerned about the mission, but also not being surprised regarding the retreat, as we've seen several other Western allies during the last couple of months leaving Mali or announcing their retreat.
Yeah, let's talk about the future of the mission. We've seen France pull out. The British troops are set to do the same. Where does that leave the MINUSMA mission?
We still have a very strong mission. So it is around 14,000 soldiers strong, with around 60 to 65 nations participating. But what we can see more and more recently is that especially Western nations, European nations are pulling out. And as these peace operations function, usually the troop contributing countries bring their own material, equipment and everything else. So a nation like Germany, for example, or Great Britain are often way better equipped and also have better resources than West African partners or countries from Southeast Asia that participate in the mission and that so far will stay in the mission.
These Western powers withdrawing will certainly leave a vacuum, won't they? Who's likely to fill that?
We have to see how the mission will react to it. They are at the moment in the internal process of restructuring already, knowing that some key partners will leave. And it seems to be clear that there will be maybe a new focus on certain parts of the mandate or restructuring within the mission to compensate for these lags. But also, obviously, this is a question that should be asked by the Western nations leaving the mission now, at least with the military capacity, in what way they can support the UN, the MINUSMA, or maybe a follow-up mission that was, for example, also mentioned by the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, recently.
How do you expect Russia's role to evolve in Mali?
We've seen over the last year and a half that the Russian influence was mostly in the shadows. So we've seen a lot of Russian propaganda popping up. We see talking points brought up by the government or close to the government actors that resemble things we could maybe find in a Russian playbook on destabilization, as well as obviously the role of the Wagner group closely affiliated with Russia that is present. For the moment, this seems to be the status quo. They are there. They caused a lot of, we could say, turmoil. But obviously, it is not clear what the long-term goals of Russia are. So in contrast to a country, for example, as France, that has long century-old ties to Mali, these are not as prominent with Russia. So we could assume that maybe if the wind turns or if it doesn't seem opportune anymore, that Russia also leaves and then with that would leave Mali on its own.
All right, a situation to watch, definitely. Christian Klatt of the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung in Mali, many thanks.
Thank you.